It's time for Swede Live. I'm a Swede Speaks, live from Riga, capital of Latvia, and once it was the biggest city in Sweden. And I'm happy that you're here. Welcome and God bless everyone who is watching. I'm always happy to connect with you here in this live stream. And this live stream will be on for about 70 minutes. And we're just getting started with this week's live stream. So before we begin, let's pray. Dear Lord, bless this live stream. Bless everyone who is watching this live stream now and later. Lord, give our world revival. Let your name be praised in all languages, in every country and by every nation and tribe. Give wisdom to our leaders. Protect persecuted Christians. And Lord, bless the upcoming elections in Finland and in Denmark. We pray this in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen. And remember that we take prayer requests in this live stream, and we're happy to pray. So let me say a few words about what I'm trying to do, for whom, and what I'm for. I do this for you. Without you, I couldn't do this. So to everyone watching and participating, thank you. The chat is for you to connect and discuss. And you know, it's about faith, values, culture, and ideas. Without Christian faith, without biblically based values, in combination with Roman law and Greek philosophy, there would be no Western civilization. There would be no Western cultures. And without the Anglo-American ideas of liberty, all the way from the Magna Carta in medieval England, through the American Declaration of Independence, the emancipation of slaves in the United States, and the banning of the slave trade, without free speech, without these ideas and more, there would be no West. These things are not because of geography or genetics. They are because of the things I said: faith, values, culture, and ideas. These are the things I defend, and I hope that you will too. It may look dark in many Western countries right now, but all is not lost yet. To turn these things around, to turn the tide, all we need is critical mass, the stubborn 10% who will stand up for these ideas. That's what I do, and I hope you will too. Because, you know, I'm opposed to socialism, to Islam, to political correctness, because they are harmful ideas, and because they have undermined Western civilization and any civilization that they have gotten in touch with. These ideas need to be confronted, and they need to be stopped. So let's do just that. Let's stand up for Judeo-Christian Western civilization against socialism, against political correctness, and against Islam. And you know, when it comes to these ideas, when it comes to Islam, when it comes to Marxism, when it comes to political correctness, compromise is not possible. I repeat, compromise is not possible. It is not an option. We have to stand up against it. And last but not least, Western civilization is unthinkable without Christianity. If you remove Christianity, as many socialists and liberals have tried, the West dies. And you're not going to like what comes after the West. So, if you want to support my work, feel free to do so. You can send a super chat of whatever amount you like. Just click the little dollar sign under your name, and I will read out all super chats as long as you follow the general rules of this live stream. No racism, no anti-Semitism, and no incitement. Please, be nice. Don't incite. And for the record, anti-Islam is not racism, but don't incite against anyone, including Muslims, SJWs, Marxists, or whichever group you can think of. So, with that being said, let's take a look at the chat. We have 7 people watching, and that's great. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate your presence here, because, you know, without you, there would be no me. At least, I mean, I wouldn't be able to do this, because, as I say, talking to a wall or just talking into a camera without anyone watching, that wouldn't be very fun, and it would be kind of pointless. So I'm really happy that you're here, and do all of the good things. Well, thank you all for joining us, and thank you for participating. Thank you for supporting this channel. And remember, like, subscribe, share, comment, and super chat. That's all very good. And tell your friends and family about this channel. And I would also want to ask you for a different favor. I want to ask you to search for a Swede Speaks in YouTube search engine. Don't just go to this channel directly, but go to the search engine in YouTube, write a Swede Speaks, pick your favorite video from this channel, and write a comment under that video that you like that video. Because, you know, if you do that, it sounds very simple, right? So if you do this simple thing, It will help us a lot with the algorithm. So thank you very much for your help. So the first thing I'd like to talk about today is Greta Thunberg, also known as Climate Greta or Klimat Greta. She is 16 years old, and she has just been awarded a prize by the Norwegian organization Fritt Ord, Free Word. She is given the prize together with the Norwegian organization Natur og Ungdom, Nature and Youth, and they each get 250,000 Norwegian kroner, which is roughly 29,500 US dollars. Greta Thunberg says that she will donate her part of the prize money to the ongoing lawsuit People vs. Arctic Oil, a lawsuit started by Greenpeace and Nature and Youth against the state of Norway. And the intention is to stop Norway from looking for oil in the Arctic. And you know, I don't want to attack a 16-year-old, but I will repeat what I said last time that I mentioned her. She is 16 years old. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She was actually asked by someone whether nuclear power would be better for the climate, and she responded that she's a kid and she doesn't know. And you know, we should respect that she is a kid. We shouldn't give her this microphone to be broadcasted to the world, to Sweden and to the entire world. Because 20 years from now, she may very well regret everything that she says right now. You know, I'm really happy that I didn't have that kind of attention when I was 16. And she is used by the left, including her own mother, leftist activist Malena Ernman. I find that repulsive. But you know, Climate Greta, she has been denied a microphone recently. She was supposed to speak to the European Parliament, invited by the leftists there, but she has been denied to do so. The European People's Party, well, the pseudo-conservative group in the European Parliament, said that speaking to the entire European Parliament is limited to representatives of states and governments, not children. And the nationalist group in the European Parliament, ENF, Europe of Nations and Freedom, were also against her speaking. Their spokesman, Tom van Endriche, says, and I quote, "We have more than 700 EU parliamentarians to debate politics, so we don't need a climate messiah, even if she is 16 years, unquote. Thunberg, Climate Greta, will address the Environmental Committee of the European Parliament, but at least she doesn't get to address the entire Parliament. So in this case, I'll say, good job, EPP and ENF. Let's see. Ellen Wen says shalom. Well, shalom and peace to you too. Stephen Cray says soon to be Christmas. Well, it's 10 months left, but by all means, I hope you'll have a Merry Christmas when it comes around next time. Stationary Plane says international ushery destroys the world, or it did. Not sure exactly what you're referring to, but well, ushery, if it's forced, is a bad thing. People being able to lend money on whatever terms they agree on, if they are consenting adults, so to speak, I don't have a problem with that. So, yeah, depends on what you mean. But, well, I'm happy that you're all here. John Denmark says good afternoon, good evening. Well, good afternoon, good evening to you too. And we got 14 people in here now, so that's great. And, you know, tell your friends and family. That's what I say. And, hey, remember to click the like button. That's also a really great help. So, in Sweden's eastern neighbor Finland, there is a general election coming up on Sunday, April 14th, tomorrow. And it looks like the Finns party, Perussuomalaiset, will do great. In a recent poll, they have 16.3%, second only to the Social Democrats who have 19%. The Finns party is growing in numbers in the polls. The Social Democrats, well, they are losing in numbers. And what makes the Finnish party grow right now? Well, it's not immigration. At least it's not only immigration. It's the climate hysteria. The only ones objecting to climate hysteria in Finland among the parties in parliament is the Finns party, while other parties want to raise taxes to fight so-called man-made global warming. The Finns party, they're not interested in that. In a recent TV debate, Finns party politician Matti Putkonen stated that aggressive environmental measures will take the sausage out of the mouth of laborers. And he also spoke about left liberals trying to turn cats and dogs vegan. He didn't say this is happening yet, but he said that it will come. And speaking up against climate hysteria seems to be working. In November last year, the Finns party polled at 8.1%. Now they poll at 16.3%. So in 5 months, they have doubled their numbers. So I hope that the Finns party receives a lot of votes tomorrow. And there is also a general election coming up in Denmark, no later than June this year. And it's the same thing in Denmark as in Britain. The government decides when the election will be, but it has to be within a 5-year period in Denmark, well, after their last election. And Facebook has decided to block the Danish alternative media site 24 Nyt, 24 News, and that could be connected with the upcoming election. Better not let people get the wrong kind of information or perspectives. Better control the narrative, right? Because, compared to Facebook and Twitter, YouTube is a haven of free speech. And I'm not kidding. Think about that for a moment. Let's see. John Denmark says 4 years. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm wrong about that. It's a 4-year period. Okay. Hope for the Planet says, can you tell us a bit about the Finns party? Okay, I'll tell you what I know sort of from the top of my mind, because I've been following them for a few years, but I'm not an expert. I know what I read about them, pretty much, and the people I've talked to who are involved. But almost 2 years ago, there was a split within the Finns party where you had a more hardline, I guess you could say nationalist, I wouldn't say racist, but nationalist fraction who stood against a more moderate fraction. And they had this party meeting in the summer of 2017. I was actually in Finland then by chance. I didn't even know that was going to happen then. So I woke up to the news on TV in Finland early in the morning and saw what had happened. So they split, and the hardliners were the ones who sort of won the party. The other ones, they left, and they formed a new party called Blue Alternative. And Blue Alternative, well, from all I can see, they are not going to make it back into parliament again, as they were the people who split out of the party. So the party now is basically, they're very skeptical of Islam. They are skeptical of mass immigration. To the best of my knowledge, they are not racists. I mean, there could be an individual racist or two in that party, but you'll find them in any party, including the Democrats or whoever. But they are skeptical of Islam, they are skeptical of mass immigration, and they are skeptical of raising taxes due to this climate hysteria. They are kind of the antidote to climate Greta, so to speak. So, well, that's in short what I have to say about them. Sam M says, hi, Sweden all. Hello to you too. And John Denmark says, the great climate lie, more tax, nothing else. Yeah, well, in short, I agree. And Thomas Boyd says, hi, Swede, YouTube is awesome, God bless. Well, God bless you too. Let's see. John Denmark says, I tell you, all Danish mainstream media are state-run. They have been blocking, shadow banning, and all running a campaign against the Danish People's Party. So we might have 4 years with pure socialist People's Socialist, a socialist party, the alternative, a green clown party, and behold, over 10% communist. Almost sounds like Sweden, although I know Sweden is the odd man out, or Sweden is the really crazy one, but yeah. I mean, I assume that Danish media at least is state-sponsored. I mean, the mainstream media, you probably have some kind of tax subsidies for the press, right? Shadow67 says, hey there, Swede. Hello to you too. And Hope for the Planet says, sounds like the Finns party is rather pragmatic and sensible. I would say so, from what I can tell. And I would probably disagree with them on some issues, and I would agree on other issues. But I'm just saying you shouldn't misrepresent anyone. So we've got 16 people in here, and that's great. Thank you all for being here. And make sure to like, share. Feel free to send me a super chat, and tell your friends and family about this channel. And just let me repeat. I would also like for you to search for a Swede Speaks in the search engine of YouTube. Instead of just going to my channel, go to the search engine, write the Swede Speaks, pick your favorite video from this channel, and write a comment under that video that you like that video. If you do that simple thing, it will help us with the algorithm. So, thank you very much. And in Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu stays as prime minister after winning their elections. Thank God for that. Israel is still safe. The Israeli left, they wouldn't be able to defend the Holy Land, but Netanyahu is. And, well, thank you for this, Lord. And Julian Assange was recently arrested to be extradited to the United States. And you know, some people may not like what I'm going to say now because, well, sure, WikiLeaks helped to reveal the shady business of Hillary Clinton. Perhaps it helped Donald Trump to win the election. However, some of the WikiLeaks sources were revealed and people got killed over it. Plus, a country has to be able to keep some information secret. We don't want the entire world to know everything about the US defense, for instance, or about the Swedish defense for that matter. So I don't consider Julian Assange a hero, at least not an unflawed one. And in the United States of America, Blexit founder and Turning Point USA employee Candace Owens spoke in Congress. Did you see that? Did you see how Ted Lieu, a Californian Democrat, tried to smear her by playing a clip where she talked about Hitler and tried to make it seem like she was a Hitler supporter? Candace Owens' response was epic because she did not praise Hitler, not even in the clip. What she said was that if Hitler only wanted to make Germany great again, then that would be fine. But that's not what he was about. And that he was not a nationalist by her definition, since he invaded other countries to be able to expand Germany. And obviously, since he killed millions of German citizens, Jewish and non-Jewish citizens of Germany. So I understand why the left attacks Candace Owens. She is a threat, a real threat to them. She is an intelligent black woman who has left the Democratic Party and who is an active proponent of other black Americans to leave the Democrats, to think for themselves. That's what her Blexit movement, the black exit from the Democratic Party, or the Democratic plantation, is about. And she also brought up the history of the Democrats. The Democrats were pro-slavery, they were pro-Jim Crow, and there was never a switch. One or two Democrats shifted to Republicans. That's all. And even with all the rhinos, Republicans in name only, the Republican values are still meritocracy and that everyone in America, white, black, or otherwise, should be given a chance to succeed. And I fully support those values. And I agree with Candace Owens on the Democrats. Seeing her bring the Democrat Ted Lieu down was just epic. And let's also remember that Blexit has inspired other movements like Lexit, the Latin exit from the Democratic Party, and Jexodus, the Jewish exodus from the Democratic Party. So I will follow the 2020 elections in the United States with great interest and with great hope. Let's see. We have Martha Almond Woodland says, I did saw it. It was great. Yeah, it really was. Charles Keatington says, Keatington here. Well, great to have you here. Stephen Cray says, let's hope that the EU dies its death soon. Oh, I hope so too. You know, I want the EU abolished. And I'd say this. If it was only about an agreement about free trade and free movement of law-abiding citizens, if that was it, I wouldn't have a problem. But it's not about that. The EU is not, as my good friend used to say, the EU is not the United States of America. The EU is turning into the Soviet Union. That's what's going on, and I don't like it. So we got 20 people in here. So I'd like to announce that on Thursday, April 18th, I'm going to launch a new show. It will be at noon Eastern Standard Time and 7 p.m. Central European Time. The show will focus on faith, prayer, Christian apologetics, reaching Europe with the gospel, things like that. I don't intend to be very political in that show, although, of course, there are issues where Christianity and politics collide. But most of all, I want to use that show for prayer, for faith, for reaching Europe with the gospel, because it is painfully obvious to me that Europe needs a revival. So if you're a Christian, or if you're interested in these matters, check it out on Thursday. The time is picked to better suit a European audience, but anyone, wherever you happen to live in the world, is, of course, welcome. Let's see. Sam M says EU is against the will of the European people. Yeah, I don't see the EU as being good for anyone except for a few politicians and bureaucrats. And that's about it. Stephen Cray says Europe needs Christian values for sure. Well, I'm happy that you think so. So, yeah, that's great. I agree. So we've got 20 people, I think. 24 people watching. That's great. And, well, I'd like to ask you a few questions to get the discussion going for the next 50 minutes or so. So the first thing I'd like to know is, where are you from? And what are the hot issues in your country or your area? So what I would like to know is, where are you from? And what are the hot issues in your country or your area? And Charles Keatington says, that is correct. The EU is not a European version of the US. Yeah, I think you know who pointed it out to me, and I just had to agree. Let's see. Steven says Brexit. Oh, you mean Brexit? I absolutely hope for a Brexit very, very soon. I would like to wake up to the news tomorrow and hear that Brexit was that Britain just crashed out. That would be great. Sam M says Alberta provincial election. I'm from Saskatchewan. So isn't Alberta supposed to be the more conservative part of Canada, or did I get that wrong? And also, what do you think is going to happen with the election in Canada? Is it this year or is it next year? Well, there is one coming up, but I actually, from the top of my mind, I'm not sure which year. I think it's this year, but just correct me if I'm wrong. Stephen Cray says Skegness, England. Brexit, Brexit, Brexit. Absolutely Brexit. I support Brexit 100%. And Skegness, that sounds kind of Scandinavian, actually. Maybe there were some Vikings involved. John Denmark says it's all about the Muslims, nothing else. Well, maybe that's why they are trying to silence pages like 24 Nytt, 24 News. And it's possible I wouldn't like everything they write. I actually don't know. My point is that you shouldn't be banned from sharing a link from whatever website, pretty much. I mean, maybe with the exception if you are actually inciting to violence, but that's it. And as far as I know, that's not what they're doing. And I mean, if I share a news story and it's fake news, well, let's say it is. Who is going to decide that it's fake news? I mean, you will have to look at the story and make that assessment for yourself. I mean, use all the sources you can and your sound reasoning, but you can't have Facebook or the government or whoever define what is fake news, because that will always be misused. And if people aren't allowed to speak their minds, well, if people aren't allowed to speak, we will see violence, and I don't want violence. I am not inciting to any violence here. I'm saying it's better to let people speak, even if they say things that we think are really dumb. Let's see. Charles Keatington says Sweden. We still have a lot of problems here. The council something? The Kluiku? I'm not sure what you mean by that. And VGY? Do you have a cat over walking walking on your computer or something? Oh, let's see. Charles Keatington says the council wants to sell Gottsunda Center now. Oh, the Uppsala Municipal Council. Okay, do they have any buyers? Because, well, Gottsunda is pretty much a no-go area. Martha Allman Woodland says USA Midwest, the 2020 elections. Yeah, I hope that Trump is going to do great, and I also hope that, well, the good and sound Republicans will do a great election. Actually, I would like to see Candace Owens in Congress, but I don't think she's running for that kind of office. But it would be, I mean, it would just be a great counterexample against all these new young people who were elected last time. Well, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and these people. Thomas Boyce says, October 2019, Canada general election. Canada have a chance to give Trudeau's Liberal out of power. I hope they do. I really, really hope so. Shadow67 says, the West works because of Greek philosophy, Roman law, and Christian religion, and we are removing those pillars. I agree. That's pretty much what I'm saying. So, yeah. Hope for the Planet says, I agree with you. Candace Owens would be a fantastic congresswoman. I think she would be. But she's probably too busy with her work for the Turning Point USA, and that's great too. Charles Keatington says, buyers, you're joking, right? Well, I guess I'm kind of joking. I mean, I wouldn't buy Gottsunda Center. I mean, even if I wouldn't accept it for free because it would cost me too much anyway. Let's see. Stephen Cray says, Trump 2020. I'm embarrassed to say my sister's a Democrat and hates my love for Trump. Well, most of my near family, they're not as excited about Trump as I am either. So, well, especially being Western European, because you're from England, I think you said so. And yeah, I tell you something about British people. I love the British, but the British people who I meet in continental Europe, I'm not always very fond of them, because every time they start talking, they all want to whine about Brexit and how they want Britain to remain in the EU. And probably because they're afraid they're going to get kicked out of Prague or Riga or wherever they live, which I think, that's stupid. I don't think that's going to happen. But in any case, well, it's pretty much the same thing actually with the Americans I met in Europe, people who live here in Europe. They tend to be to the left of politics in their home countries. I guess that's why they moved to continental Europe. Amy Black says, my family loves Trump. Thomas Boyd says, that's firm yes, Canada first. Tories would win in Canada general election. What about the Tories in Canada? Are they able to get good candidates, or are they going to get people who are like Tories in name only? Oh yeah, John Denmark says something interesting here. He says, you read about a Russian man who seeks asylum in Poland. After living in Sweden with 3 kids, his wife got mentally ill. The government removed the 3 kids and sent them in care with a Muslim family. Yeah, I read that story. It's insane, actually. I think, didn't his wife die? She was very, very ill. That much I know. And he was waiting to receive a work permit in Sweden. And then because she got ill and she couldn't work, the authorities decided that they should take the kids and send them to another family. And from what I understand, the man is an actual Christian, and they sent the kids to a Muslim family where they were trying to proselyte to the kids. But he was able to get to see his kids sometimes. So in one of these occasions, he took the kids with him and took a plane, and he was actually heading for Russia, I think. But the plane landed in Warsaw, and he had to shift planes there. So he was stopped there because Sweden had, they had him on a wanted list. And then he pleaded for asylum, and a Polish court of law has actually decided that he gets to keep his children while they are looking into whether they should grant him asylum or not. But I mean, even if they're not giving him asylum, as a Russian citizen, he'll be free to take his kids with him to Russia, from what I understand. In any case, the Poles seem to be a lot saner than Swedes when it comes to this. Let's see. Charles Keatingham says Trudeau is a traitor. Yeah. And Martha Allman Woodland says, my family is divided. The majority of the Democrats in my family only listen to fake news. Oh, no, that's very common, I'm afraid. But you have some people who are waking up, and that's great. So, another thing I'd like to ask you is, does your media talk about climate Greta Thunberg, and what do they say about her? So what I would like to know is, does your media talk about climate Greta Thunberg, and what do they say about her? Let's see. Thomas Boyd says, British people live in Europe for pleasure. Europeans like Italians and Germans need trade with Great Britain. My granny was German, and Germany has a chance to be great again. They could be. And I don't see, well, I think that continental Europe needs Britain more than Britain needs continental Europe. If I was the prime minister of Britain, I would pretty much just tell the EU to, well, pardon my French, I would tell them to sod off. I would say, we have paid enough. We're not giving you a single penny more. Plus, do you remember that we saved France, we saved Germany, we saved Western Europe from the Nazis and from the communists? So perhaps you should pay us instead. That's what I would say, and then I would leave. And then I would just place that phone call over to the White House in Washington, D.C., and take up Trump on his offer that the UK is first in line for a trade deal with the US. So, I mean, I don't see why they should be so hysterical about leaving the EU without a deal. I say leave first and make a deal after. And no, I don't want the UK to have the same kind of deal that Norway does, and especially not Norway Plus. They could have the deal that Switzerland has, to the best of my knowledge. Switzerland was offered to be a part of the European Economic Agreement area, but they turned it down because they said it's a bad deal. We don't want any of it. And what happened was that that Switzerland got a trade deal with the EU, and as far as I understand, they're not paying anything for it. Because you shouldn't pay to have trade. Trade in itself is, I mean, in general, a good thing. Of course, if a country is manipulating their currency and stuff like that, like China's been doing, that's different. But yeah, you get my point. Stephen Cray says, leave, no deal. And Steven says, just leave on the World Trade Organization rules. Exactly. Stephen Cray says, we've had America, Australia, Mexico, etc. wanting to trade on World Trade Organization. Yeah, exactly. There is no need to be controlled by the EU in any way. Stephen Cray says, May has purposely messed it up from the word go. Yeah, I think she has. Because, well, She is she's a Remainer, and she promised to give Britain Brexit. But how can you put a Remainer in charge of that? I don't understand that. Martha Allman Woodland just sent a super chat of $10. Thank you very much for that, ma'am. That's really generous of you. I really appreciate your generosity. So thanks a lot. John Denmark says, but can I ask a few questions about Europe history and you can answer? Well, you can try. I mean, I don't know what kind of questions you'll ask, so I don't know if I'll be able to answer them or not, but you can try. Or maybe you're referring to someone else in here, to Hope for the Planet. John Denmark says 1683. Yeah, year 6. Yeah, that's the battle that's the gates of Vienna, I think, when the Islamic army, the army from the Ottoman Empire, was stopped by different European countries, but especially the Polish king with his hussars. The winged hussars, they came to the rescue, and they stopped the Islamic invasion of Europe at that point in time, at that place, the gates of Vienna. Yeah, absolutely. 1683 is a year that should be celebrated. And it seems like the Polish still remember it. Charles Keatington says, the US just left and they have never regretted it. That's a good point. And I've been to Poland. I've been to Latvia. I've been to the Czech Republic, or Czechia. I've been around in some of these countries. When I was in Poland last year, it's pretty much 1 year ago now. And when I was there, I didn't see a single person in a hijab. I saw a few people who may have been tourists, or maybe they lived there, people who were of African descent, Asian descent, people who were not Europeans by descent. But no one, to what I could see, they were not harassed by anyone. But also, I didn't see any hijabs. I assume that if you wear a hijab, if you want to wear a hijab, if you want to impose Sharia, and if you want to live off taxpayer money, Poland might not be where you move. You might try to move to a Scandinavian country instead, or to the UK, or to Germany, or to France. Because, well, I don't think there are much benefits to get in countries like Poland and Czechia and Latvia and so on. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but actually, I don't think so. Let's see. Thomas Boyd says, UK government has planned to stop Brexit. UK will stay in the EU with current membership term. UK will have a second referendum. Well said about Europe. Gates of Vienna, 1683. Well, thank you very much. The thing is, when will the next election be in Britain? I mean, how much time does Theresa May have before she has to call for another election? And in that election, I predict that UKIP is going to do really great. The Brexit Party, I don't know about them. Maybe they will get seats in Parliament too. I don't know how many, or if they will, or if I prefer if people vote for UKIP actually. But I know that Nigel Farage thinks the UKIP have gone Islamophobic, which is bogus, of course, because there is no such thing as Islamophobia. But that's what he thinks. Anyway, if you can get a lot of Brexiteers in Parliament, and if you can get them in the European Parliament too, they might be able to force a Brexit through. Let's see. Hope for the Planet says, hey, my Swede, don't advertise. Don't encourage the third world Islamic migrants to move to the Netherlands, Western Europe, or UK. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just analyzing why I haven't seen any hijabs in Poland or in Czechia. Or actually, I have seen one in Latvia, and that was in church. So I will give that woman a pass, because if she's someone in a hijab who goes to church because she might looking into if she should convert to Christianity and she hasn't made the decision yet, then I'm going to say welcome. So yeah, in that case. But apart from that, I haven't seen a single hijab in Riga since I got here 1.5 months ago. Let's see. Anderson says, thank you for keeping us in the US updated. I love how President Trump is making America great again. People like you give me hope for Sweden. My heart aches for Sweden to be great again too. I would like for Sweden to be great, period. But thank you very much for your kind words. Hope for the planet says joke. Well, okay. Thomas Boyd says, she will be sacked by December 2019. I'm voting Tommy Robinson UKIP. He has support of the USA. Is Tommy Robinson going to run as a candidate? That would actually be epic if he did, because I know he is an unpaid advisor to UKIP on grooming gangs and was it on Islam or multiculturalism or whatever? But I know that he is involved with them. Steven says, make Sweden Swedish again. Well, if you're referring to Sweden having Swedish culture, Swedish values, which is pretty much Western values, then I agree. Steven says, Nigel is afraid of being called nasty names. We need to move on and talk about Islam. I think both Islam and the EU needs to be discussed. And I don't think the EU is going to stop Islam, from growing in numbers. Martha Almond Woodland says, hope Tommy gains more supporters. I hope so too. And Stephen Cray says he's trying for member of parliament. Oh, that's great. If I was right, I couldn't vote for him anyway. If I was a British citizen, I would vote for him. John Denmark says, Islam must be stopped in Europe, and there sure ain't no happy ending. I would hope for a peaceful ending, but history shows us that wherever Islam establishes itself, it doesn't matter if it's in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, wherever, there will be a clash between, the country's original culture and the Islamic one, because Islam just does not assimilate. That's not in the nature of Islam. You have individual Muslims who assimilate, and they leave Islam, because as long as they actually follow Islam, they are unable to assimilate. And that's true in Europe, it's true in America, it's true in Asia, it's true in Africa, it's true in Australia. You can look at what's going on in Western European countries now. And that's kind of the soft version of the clash with Islam. You might think it's bad in France or in Germany or in Sweden now, or in the UK. Absolutely, it is bad. Look at how Christians or non-Muslims, look at how Christians are treated in Nigeria. Look at the civil war that happened in Sudan, where Swedish media said that Arabs were attacking sub-Saharan Africans. What actually they did not want to go into, what actually happened was that Muslims attacked Christians. Look at how Christians are treated in Indonesia. It's all over the place. And I'm not against individual Muslims, but I'm against Islam. That's pretty much the point here. John Denmark says Egypt was once Christian. That's true. And I was watching a documentary a few days ago. I think it was called African Civilizations. And I just started watching the first episode. I didn't have a chance to watch all of it because I was sort of short on time. But anyway, the person who made the documentary, an American named Henry Louis Gates, he's a historian and a genealogist and things like that. He was talking about Aksum, and he was talking about Ethiopia, and how Ethiopia was a Christian kingdom in the Horn of Africa, in East Africa. And they got really, really isolated there. because Egypt fell to Islam. You had all the other countries around. They all turned Islamic pretty much. So, yeah, they were in a really bad neighborhood. And actually, I read this somewhere else, but you actually had, when Ethiopia was attacked by Muslims, I don't remember exactly when this happened, but the Ethiopians sent messages around to Christian kingdoms all over the Christian world, and Portugal sent troops to fight off the invading Muslims. And of course, the Portuguese and the Ethiopians started arguing over who was right and who was wrong about Christianity. The Portuguese wanted the Ethiopians to convert to Catholicism. The Ethiopians wanted the Portuguese to convert to Ethiopian Orthodoxy. But then they stopped arguing and decided to work together to stop the Islamic invasion. So yeah, I got sort of off the rails a little here, but it's an interesting story. I should look more into it. But Christianity did not come to Africa with colonialism. It was already there, although Islam was doing its job trying to eradicate it. Anyway, let's see. Mark Kidwell says, what's the point Tommy being a member of the European Parliament? Well, I think it would be great. I mean, if he's in the European Parliament, can they really arrest him then? I mean, I don't know if he will have some kind of diplomatic immunity or something. And he would be able to use the European Parliament as like a big microphone. I mean, all his, whatever he wants them to do would probably be voted down. Probably. But what would happen, he would have, I think he would get a larger influence, and I would love that. Let's see. Hope for the Planet says, why can't people make the distinction between the supremacist ideology of Islam and Muslims? Also, which side would Muslims take in a takeover? Well, yeah, exactly. Stephen Cray says, Tommy was just hinting today on a video he wants for people to show their support for him to become a member of parliament. Yeah, that's very interesting. I'll look into it. Martha Almond Woodland says, I have friends who left Egypt and Ethiopia to escape Muslim persecution in the earlier part of the 2000s. Yeah, that's horrible. It really is, but I'm not surprised. I mean, Egypt is just horrible now when it comes to treatment of the Coptic Christians. And if anyone wants to talk about indigenous populations or who was first anyway and all of that stuff, well, the Copts were there first. And of course, some of them converted to Islam. But I think what you had was, you had Arabs moving there, bringing Islam and just taking over the country. John Denmark says, Stephen Cray, I didn't see that. On which platform is that video? Yeah, that I would like to know that too. Where can I find the video where Tommy Robinson says that he would like to become a member of the European Parliament? That would be really, really, really interesting. Maybe a Telegram. Okay. I guess I will Google it when I'm done with the live stream. So let's see. I'll ask you this one. Do you think that Facebook censorship, like the one in Denmark, is it going to work? Or will it make Danes more populist and more conservative instead? So what I would like to know is, do you think that Facebook censorship, like the one in Denmark, will it work? Or will it make Danes more populist and more conservative instead? John Denmark says, no, don't use Google. Block Google. Yeah, you're right. I ought to use DuckDuckGo. I should stop using Google as a verb too. I should search for it. That's a better way to put it. And there are 30 people watching. That's great. I'm happy that you're all here. So if you haven't already clicked the like button, I would really love for you to do that. I would really, really appreciate that. I'll tell you something funny. Licorice is not a big thing pretty much anywhere except in the Nordic countries and in the Netherlands. And I've been craving licorice since I came to Riga because I couldn't find it anywhere. But yesterday I walked past a store called Flying Tiger Copenhagen, which is a Danish chain, and they have stores apparently all over Northern Europe. So I thought, if anyone has licorice in this country, it's got to be them. So I walked in the store, and yeah, they had it. So I'm happy now. Anyway, that's just like a personal funny story. But let's see here. Steven says censorship never works. In the end, will make people angry. That's what I think too. Martha Almond Woodland says, please describe the censorship. Okay, I'll tell you in short what's going on in Denmark. In Denmark, there is an election coming up soon. We don't know exactly when, but it has to be no later than June this year, because the government of Denmark can call for an election whenever they want, but they have to do it within a 4-year period from the last election. And 4 years will have passed in June, so then they have to call an election if they haven't done so before that. And there is a Danish alternative media site called 24 Nyt, which means 24 News or something like that. And Facebook has blocked them, so you cannot share articles from that site anymore on Facebook. And what I'm thinking here is that there's probably a connection here. They don't want the wrong kind of perspective. I mean, the wrong kind of perspective from the mentality of Facebook, from a left liberal perspective. They don't want opposing viewpoints. And I mean, I don't know if I would agree with everything they write either. Probably not. I might agree with most of the stuff they write, and some stuff I will not agree with. I mean, obviously. But my point is, if you block people from sharing articles, I don't think that's a good idea. But yeah, that's what's going on. Hope for the Planet says, liked, and thank you for replying this forum. Also a licorice lover. Best friend is a Dane. Oh, thank you for liking, and thank you for your kind words. Let's see. Thomas Boyd says, YouTube is playing with the like button. 13 day. God bless. Well, God bless you too. And yeah, you can't always trust YouTube's number. That's correct. John Denmark says, the 26th of May, that's the date. You heard it from me first. Okay, we'll see if your assessment is correct. But yeah, we'll see. And it will be really interesting. I mean, we have the Finnish election coming up tomorrow. We have the election in Denmark coming up maybe in April, maybe in May, maybe in June, and no later than June. That's going to be interesting. You have the election in Canada. You have the election in Britain. Apparently, that will be December this year. Or, well, if I understand the British system correct, it has to be December or earlier. No later than December this year. So it's going to be really interesting to see what's happening. And you also have the elections to the European Parliament, and apparently Tommy Robinson is looking into running as a member of the European Parliament, which would be great. I know that Carl Benjamin Sargon of Akkad, he's running, and hey, I support both of those guys. Let's see. Moth Queen says, Nigel Farage's show on LBC is no more for now. He's getting back into politics. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think he should have stayed with UKIP, but whatever. If he can get people to vote for the Brexit party, if he will get a different kind of voters, that's still great. The more Brexiteers in the British Parliament and in the European Parliament, the better. Let's see. Akt Peterha says, let's hope for a big victory for the Finns party. Absolutely. Absolutely. I hope so. Let's see. John Denmark says, the biggest mainstream media is Extrabladet. They've been since 2016 shadow banning people. I have videos where I write the Enhedslisten, that's the communists are good, and then the Danish People Party is good, etc. Guess what was shadow banned? I'm going to guess that when you write about the Danish People's Party, they are shadow banning that. That's my guess. Let's see. Art Schneider says, "Hi Sweden all. I want to thank you all for your prayers and glad you tell you that it worked as my father is healing from pneumonia and has been moved from the ICU. Again, thank you all." Well, I'm really happy to hear that, Art Schneider. Thank you for your kind words. God bless and praise the Lord. Martha Almond Woodland says, "I'm against the silencing of the voice of the opposition. I want to know my opposition." Yeah, exactly. And Mark Kidwell says, "Sargon is a second vote." Yeah. I mean, if I could vote for two candidates, if I was a British citizen, which I'm not, then I would have voted for Tommy Robinson and for Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad. Let's see. Thomas Boyd says Finland has a chance to vote Finn's party. I hope they do. I hope they do. And now also because the Finns party don't only have this anti-Islamic part, which I totally completely agree with. They also have, well, the skepticism towards the climate hysteria, as I call it, and against introducing new taxation and, well, strange rules. And this politician from the Finns party, his name was, I think, Marko Putkonen. I think so. I might have messed it up, but I think so. And he also said that if we let them carry on, won't be long until they are trying to make your cats and dogs become vegan, which I mean, of course, would be animal abuse. But yeah, and before that, they're going to make meat expensive so that a regular Finnish worker won't be able to have his sausage. And yeah, it sounds like a luxury problem, but well, it has a lot of resonance with Finnish voters, it seems like, because their numbers are growing. So I really hope that the numbers will stay the same or get even better in the election on Sunday 14th. I hope so. And you know what would happen? Let's say that Finland would adopt really radical policies. Let's say they would add really high taxation on different sorts of food that they don't want people to eat, like, for instance, sausages. A lot of Finns would just go abroad to Sweden or Estonia or Russia or even to Latvia and buy their food in those places instead. It wouldn't. So I mean, no one would win. It wouldn't be a win-win for anyone here. Let's see. Anderson says Tommy has a new site. Go to Avi on YouTube out of Australia. He says where you can find Tommy. Yeah, Avi Yemeni, he's great. Absolutely. Hope for the Planet says, why is the right conservative parties called Nazis? The Nazi party was the Nazi Socialist Party. Yeah, they were National Socialists. And some people say that they just called themselves socialists. They weren't really socialists because they were allied with big business and blah and so on. Well, if you look at the economic policies of the Third Reich, of Hitler Germany, their policies were socialist. The government did not formally own all the big business, but they controlled them completely. I mean, a business couldn't do anything without the regime allowing it. It was state control over business. And there was actually a politician in Sweden who kind of wanted this system in Sweden, and he wouldn't like me to bring this up. But Ingvar Carlsson, previous Prime Minister of Sweden for the Social Democrats, he used to argue that the important part was not who was the formal owner of a corporation. The important part was who called the shots, who made the decisions. And he called it functional socialism. And yeah, that's what they had in Germany in the Hitler era. Stephen Cray says, Tommy's on Telegram now. Download the Telegram app. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we've got 10 minutes left or so. So I'll ask you something else. Did you see Candace Owens' response to Ted Lieu? And what do you think about her response? So what I would like to know is, did you see Candace Owens' response to Ted Lieu? And what do you think about her response? Shadow67 says, what is your fear? I'm not sure if you're asking me or anyone else. Well, I fear Islamization of Europe. I also fear the influence of all these crazy ideas on gender and whatnot. But I also fear the backlash, because if we're not allowed to speak up now, and if we can't start to reverse things now, I fear that the backlash is going to be nasty, and I would like for the what should we call it? I would like for the reaction against Islam, against political correctness. I would like for it to be as civilized as possible. But at some point, it's going to be, you got to do what you got to do. But I don't want any violence. But I mean, I was not the one who invited Islam into Europe or into any part of the world. Hope for the Planet says, Candace Owens' response was absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Stephen Cray says, I fear my children's future in an Islamic Europe. Over my dead body, though. Yeah, I know what you mean. And yeah, I share your opinion. Hope for the Planet says, anyone with an ounce of sense is afraid of Islamic dominance, the loss of our ethnic heritage, culture, and values. Well, as you probably know by now, I don't really worry about ethnicity that much. I mean, to me, it's culture, it's values, it's faith. Really, Christian faith is at the center of Western civilization. Without Christianity, there wouldn't be a West. But sure, anyone who moves to Sweden or to Norway or to Latvia, to Poland, to Britain, to the United States, Canada, wherever, you shouldn't let people move there unless they are willing to assimilate, unless they are willing to work hard for their new country and willing to follow the laws. And I mean, not be a nuisance to the people already living there, and not try to segregate themselves from other people. Let's see. Daniel Sundqvist says, I fear the consequences of socialism war on the sovereign individual. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think these things are all connected. And you know, the interesting thing here is, I guess I'll go off the rails a little here again. The interesting thing here is that, well, you have socialists, and they are allying with Islam because they have their mutual enemy, which is pretty much people like me, Christian conservatives, or Western civilization, or capitalism, or whatever you want to call it. And all I'm saying is, socialists should study what happened in Iran. In Iran, you had the left and the Muslims. I mean, the people who were Islamists, Muslims, whatever, and the socialists, the communists. They joined forces to depose the Shah, who they said was a horrible dictator and all of that stuff. Maybe he was, but they got rid of the Shah. And what happened then was that the mullahs took over. You had an Islamist government. And what happened to the left? They hanged them, thousands of them, in just a few days. Where is the Iranian left today? They live in Sweden. They live in California. They're not living in Iran, or if they are, they're underground. But yeah, when it comes to Iran, I have a deep respect for the people who are now protesting against their government. The people in Iran who are taking off their hijabs in public, because of course that's That's illegal in Iran, but you do it anyway. So yeah. John Denmark says, Swede, check this website, uriasposten.net. He is the #1 expert. Even mainstream media and Danish politicians read. That's a very important website. I've seen it, but it's a long time ago. I should look at it again. Absolutely. Martha Almond Woodland says, I agree with those who are against socialists. Yeah, or socialism. Yeah, absolutely. Stephen Cray says, good night, everyone. I was up all last night dealing with a burst water main and need sleep. Love and peace to fellow sane people. Well, thank you for joining us, and well, have a great night. And I hope you'll be healthy and happy, and God bless you. Anderson says, Jesus is a leader of peace. Muhammad was a warlord. Jesus is coming again. There will be peace. He is my hope. Yeah, in the long run, you're right. That's what's going to happen. Steven says, socialists are the problem. Always promising utopia and always delivering hell on earth. Yeah, well, I mean, the idea that socialists have is that they can create utopia. They can create heaven on earth, the perfect society where everyone is happy. Everyone agrees because they all have the same interest or something like that. And it never happens because mankind cannot create a perfect society. We can try to make society a little better, but we can't make it perfect. Socialists cannot make society perfect. Conservatives cannot make society perfect. No one can. But the more government you want, the worse it's going to be. I mean, I would say that, because if your idea is that you can create the perfect society if you just have a big government, well, things are going to get worse than if you let people make their own mistakes and eventually also their own successes. Let's see. John Denmark says, ask yourself a question. How many of the German soldiers in World War II was a Nazi? I think that most German soldiers were not active Nazis. They might have shared some opinions. I don't know how many did, but I don't think active Nazis were the majority of the German population. And that's why I talk about what do you call it again? The stubborn 10%. You don't need a majority to win. All you need is critical mass, because most people don't want to stand up for or against anything. They just want to go with the crowd. And that's why you don't need a majority. You need the people willing to stand up. Let's see. Hope for the planet says, utopia only exists in heaven. Exactly. And John Denmark says, then asks what to do with the Muslim vote. Who will they follow? Well, if you remember the debate that was in Denmark a few weeks ago, I think, with this Iranian-born Anahita Malakians, who said that where are all the democratic Muslims, the people who don't agree with these Islamists who had this prayer right outside the Danish parliament, Hizb ut-Tahrir? Why didn't they protest? And I think actions speak louder than words. So you can say you're a moderate Muslim, you can say you're a democratic Muslim, but if you never come out to show support for instance, Western society or whichever country you happen to live in, if you never come up to show that you're against political Islam or things like that, well, then you didn't do that, and your actions speak louder than words. And then if someone draws a painting of Muhammad, like they did in Jyllands-Posten a decade or so ago, and you had people in the streets all over the world, including in Denmark, in Norway, everywhere, well, that says all I need to know. And I haven't seen any Muslims protesting against the persecution and murder of Christians in, for instance, Nigeria or Indonesia. I haven't seen that happening either. So until I see that happening, I'm going to go with what people do is more important than what people say. Let's see. Martha Almond Woodland says Cuba is a prime example. Yeah, Cuba is absolutely a prime example of, well, what happens when you try to create a utopia. So we're down to our last few minutes. If anyone has a prayer request, well, post it now. And if you got anything else, if you want to donate last time, if you want to donate super chat, if you want to hit the like button, if you want to share this video, do all of these good things right now. And also remember that on Thursday, on Thursday next week, 4 days from now, actually 5 days from now. I mean, it's Sunday morning in Latvia, so I'm kind of confused. But on Thursday, April 18th, I will have my faith and prayer show, which of course will be different than this one, but anyone who wants to join that is more than welcome. And that will be at noon Eastern Standard Time in the US and at 7 p.m. Central European Time, because I picked the time to fit better into my European audience, since I think Europe really needs the gospel. But anyone who is free on Thursday noon in East Coast USA, or is up early in West Coast USA, or wherever you happen to be in the world, is more than welcome. Let's see. Hope for the Planet says, please pray for the survival of European civilization and the dominance of Christian faith and values. Absolutely. Lord, I know that you created Europe, and you transformed Europe from a heathen part of the world where people were savages, just like any other civilization that had not been touched by Christ. You transformed Europe into this beacon of civilization. You brought the gospel to Europe. For the northern European countries, you even put the cross in the flags. You put the cross in the flag of Sweden, in the flag of Denmark, in the flag of Norway, in the flags of Finland and Iceland, and in the old English flag. So thank you, Lord, for this. And we pray, Lord, that you make sure that European civilization survives, that it doesn't just go under Islamization or leftism or a combination. And Lord, I pray that Christian faith will again be spread in Europe. I pray for revival in Europe. I pray for the values that Christianity brings. I pray that you do all these things in the name of our Lord and Savior, your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Let's see. Martha Almond Woodland says, good night, everyone. I have to finish my preparation for church tomorrow. Don't forget to super chat. Oh, absolutely. I second that message, and good night to you too, and have a great church tomorrow. Let's see. Hope for the Planet says, thank you all my heart. Well, you're welcome, sir, or ma'am, anyway. And we have a few amens coming in. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap this up. So Hope for the Planet says, remember, God helps those who helps themselves. To some extent, I agree. But, sometimes God helps the helpless too. But anyway, Dan says, what do you think of Candace Owens? I almost said I love Candace Owens. Not like that, of course. I mean, I'm a married man, but I like her policies. I like her activism. I like what she's doing. And I really liked her response to the Democratic congressman. So, yeah, I think what she's doing is great. Hey, don't call anyone a hole. Just don't do it. And with that, it's time to wrap this up. So thank you all for your support. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for participating. Please tell your friends and family about this live stream and this channel. And until next time, have a nice day or evening, or morning, depending on where you happen to be in the world right now, and God bless.